Going to discuss about the chemical kinetics. We discussed the chemical kinetics. What is the chemical kinetics? It is the main branch of the chemistry in which we study about the rate and the mechanism of a chemical reaction. इसमें kinetic as the name indicate, we discuss about the rate of a chemical reaction and the mechanism of a chemical reaction is called as the chemical kinetics. Now we discuss the rate of a reaction, the change in the concentration of the reactant. The change in the concentration of the reactant and the product in a unit time is called as the rate of a reaction, as I discussed. The change in the concentration of the reactant and the product in a unit time is known as the rate of a reaction. के product और reactant में जो change आती है is described as the rate of a reaction. This is indicated as rate in proportion to the product divided product into reactant. Now rate is equal to the proportionality का sign is replaced by the constant k, and it is equal to k react product of a reactant, or this is expressed as. For example, here we discuss the example of this one, in which we can see here. Now we are discussing the average rate. Change in the concentration of a reactant or a product in a definite time is called as the average rate, and this is indicated as the average rate is equal to this one is expressed as like this. And now we come to the instantaneous rate. Change in the concentration of a reactant or a product at an instant of time is called as the instantaneous rate, and a rate expression. The rate of chemical reaction is directly proportional to the product of a molar concentration of the reactant. This is called as the rate expression, or rate rod, like this is written as. Now here we discuss the main differences between the molecularity and the order. This is the molecularity and this is the order. The total number of molecules of the reactant specify a species that taking part in a chemical reaction. This is called as a molecularity. And order of a reaction doesn't affect the rate of a reaction, and molecularity affect the rate of the reaction. Now I have discussed the first order reaction. Rate is directly proportional to the first power of the concentration of a single reactant. As we can see, rate is proportional to the first power of the concentration of a single reactant. Rate is proportional to the A, and here we can see this one. Now here we can see the second order reaction is directly proportional to the concentration of both the reactants A and B. Here we can see like this. Here we're discussing the factors affecting the rate of a reaction, like the nature of a reactant depends on the nature of a reactants, like this. Next, the concentration on the rate of the reaction, size of the particle. Concentration on the rate of a reaction, size of the particles. effect on a temperature. Here we can see increase in the temperature increases the rate of a reaction. For the temperature increase, the kinetic energy of the molecules for also increase and speed of the chemical reaction. And the energy required to activate a chemical reaction is called as activation energy. Increase in the temperature of the molecules attain that activation energy, increased activation energy, so more atom attain the activation energy, more atom participate in the chemical reaction and rate will also increase. Now are different theories of the reaction rate, in which the first one is the activation energy. As I have already discussed what is activation energy. Activation energy, the minimum amount of energy required for the effect of a to fulfill the Korean of the reactant molecule to complete the chemical reaction is called as activation energy. As the name indicates, the energy required to activate the chemical reaction is called as activation energy. And activation energy depends on the nature of a reactant as well. Now second theory on which the chemical kinetics depends is the Korean theory. For a chemical reaction to occur, they must have a chloride to get excited. Korean theory may mean when the heat is provided, so the molecules must be collide with each other, must come close to each other, एक दूसरे के करीब आएंगे, एक दूसरे के करीब आने की वजह से एक दूसरे टकरा जाते हैं, collide करते हैं और now they get excited or all bonds break and new bonds will be formed. This is called as a Korean theory, and for colliding they must have some energy called activation energy. और इनको collide करने के लिए, एक दूसरे से टकराने के लिए, एक दूसरे के लिए इनको must have required activation energy, इनको activation energy चाहिए होती है जिसकी मदद से they must collide with each other when they come close to each other. So these are the theories which are used in this. First is the Korean theory, and second one is the activation energy theories of a reaction rate, इन विच रिएक्शन रेट के लिए दो थ्योरी जो है डिस्कस की जाती है. एक तो एक्टिवेशन एनर्जी, वो एनर्जी जो रिक्वायर्ड होती है केमिकल रिएक्शन के लिए, इज कॉल्ड एज, उसको एक्टिवेट करने के लिए इज कॉल्ड एज एक्टिवेशन एनर्जी. एंड सेकंड वन इज अ कोरियन थ्योरी. कोरियन थ्योरी का मतलब है जब मॉलिक्यूल्स से करीब आते हैं, एक दूसरे के साथ टकरा जाते हैं, और जो उनका टकराना है, एक दूसरे के करीब आना जो है, और इज कॉल्ड एज अ कोरियन थ्योरी. और जब वो एक दूसरे के साथ टकराएंगे, इन विच ऑल बॉन्ड विल ब्रेक एंड न्यू बॉन्ड विल बी ऑब्वियसली फॉर्म्ड. और उनको कोरियन के लिए जो है ये एनर्जी चाहिए होगी, विच इज कॉल्ड एज द एक्टिवेशन एनर्जी. Here we discuss the molecules have the activation energy also required for effective Korean. So proper orientation needed. Effective energy और proper energy नंबर ऑफ मालिक्यूल्स डायरेक्टली प्रोपोर्शनल टू कोरियन की. जितनी ज़्यादा मालिक्यूल्स ज़्यादा होंगे उतने कोरियन उनकी ज़्यादा होगी, उतनी उनको एक्टिवेशन एनर्जी चाहिए होगी उस केमिकल रिएक्शन को एक्टिवेट करने के लिए. Another factor which affects the rate of a reaction is the catalyst. The reaction rate which may increase or decrease by the action of a catalyst. Catalyst which increase or decrease the rate of a chemical reaction is called as a catalyst. Catalyst वो रिएजेंट होता है जो केमिकल रिएक्शन की को स्पीडी करने के लिए भी इस्तेमाल किया सकता है और उसके रेट को कम करने के लिए भी इस्तेमाल हो सकता है. And a process which is facilitated in the presence of a catalyst is called as a catalysis. Here we discuss briefly about the catalyst. What all the catalysts main point of a catalyst are. Catalysts generally increase the rate of a reaction, यानी कि केमिकल रिएक्शन को स्पीडी करने के लिए, तेज़ करने के लिए, उसकी रफ्तार को एनहेंस करने के लिए, इंक्रीज़ करने के लिए कैटलिस्ट इस्तेमाल की जाते हैं. दे आर नॉट कंज्यूम्ड एंड इंक्रीज रेट ऑफ रिएक्शन. ये केमिकल रिएक्शन में कंज्यूम नहीं होते यानी इस्तेमाल नहीं होते. वेरी स्मॉल अमाउंट रिक्वायर्ड, इनकी बहुत स्मॉल क्वान्टिटी जो है वो रिक्वायर्ड होती है केमिकल रिएक्शन के लिए. कैटलिस्ट इज मोर इफेक्टिव एंड दे आर इन अ फॉर्म ऑफ अ पाउडर, और पाउडर फॉर्म में ज़्यादा इफेक्टिव होते हैं. कैटलिस्ट इज़ हाईली स्पेसिफिक इन रिएक्शन, यानी एक केमिकल रिएक्शन के लिए जनरली एक ही कैटलिस्ट होता है. इट इज़ नॉट कि एक केमिकल रिएक्शन के लिए जो है वो हर केमिकल रिएक्शन के लिए डिफरेंट कैटलिस्ट इस्तेमाल होते हैं. कैटलिस्ट एक्टिविटी डिपेंड्स ऑन बोथ ऑन पीएच एंड टेम्परेचर. इसकी जो है इफेक्टिविटी जो है कैटलिस्ट की पीएच और टेम्परेचर पर डिपेंडेंट होती है. कैटलिस्ट कैन नॉट स्टार्ट अ केमिकल रिएक्शन बट ओनली फैसिलिटेट अ केमिकल रिएक्शन एंड ओनली. कैटलिस्ट डिक्रीज द एक्टिवेशन एनर्जी ऑफ आइटम, और कैटलिस्ट कैसे रिएक्ट करेगा कि एक्टिवेशन एनर्जी आइटम की डिक्रीज होगी और कैटलिस्ट रिएक्ट करेगा और रिएक्शन को जो है वो तेज़ करेगा, रिएक्शन की स्पीड एनहांस होगी इसकी वजह से. Now the catalysts generally are of two types, homogeneous catalyst as well as the heterogeneous catalysts. Now here we discussed another important thing which is called as a promoter. Here we can see a substance which is added along the main catalyst in a reaction to increase the reactivity is called with the catalyst is called as a promoter, like the nickel platinum act as a promoter. Here we can see. Now here is a different another term is called as a autocatalyst, as the name indicates. Autocatalyst, sometime a product formed during the reaction act as a catalyst, so this is called as a autocatalyst. And a promoter which is used in the chemical reaction with the catalyst to increase the speed, like the nickel platinum act as a promoter, and these are catalysts which is called as a promoter, and these are called as the autocatalysts.